Hey there, welcome back to the table. I really pushed it last night. I slept a lot today. So I am back at it, and I definitely want to get the game going so we can, show you how the endgame crisis plays out. This has been a bizarre game. First of all, we started with so many peaceful borders. Usually there's a war. The other thing is I basically have played the entire game without ever going to war, which is what I'm trying to do. Like, I'm not trying to be a warmonger. I'm trying to be peaceful. The other thing is, the L Gates disappointed me. They ended up being friendly. Even the Khans united, but they were on the other end of the galaxy, so you got to see them get wiped out. But, we were on the other end of the pond, so we were okay. So before I load my game, I did want to visit a topic, and this whole video is going to be on this topic. So if it doesn't interest you, you can skip to the next one. But the topic is how to make your own race. Because remember, I skipped all of this in the beginning. I didn't think it was going to be very helpful. But if you've made it this far into the series and have watched me play for, 12 hours, I think you got at least a basic idea of the mechanics. So I wanted to show you what it takes to create a new empire and what kind of options you have. First one, you get lots of choices between your type of creature. It does matter, if that's what you're wondering. Like, this isn't just cosmetic. So for example, the plants have very specific abilities, or they can have very specific abilities that you can't get anywhere else. The lithoids are the same. They are not the same as the plants, but in terms of, like, they have specific abilities. Like, lithoids have a certain style of play that's different. The machines are different, the robots. And then, of course, the aquatic, they are also different. And the necroids are different. And these are some of the ones that one of these guys has ended up being the half-fikes. I can't remember which one. But yes, the necroids are also different. Now, I'll go ahead and try to show you how some of those work. Let's start with just a plain humanoid at first, and then we can tweak it from there. So, you pick a name, you could have a gender. It does not change here, and don't worry about it. This is for your leaders and pups that get created in the game. You can change this one at a different screen. So you can create a biography. We are Pog and we rock. You have, these are like the default names of your ships, your fleets, your planets, etc. And they have lots and lots of choices. Like the aquatic ones, some of them have like a pirate theme. And then some of them are like simply purple feet, blue feet, stuff like that. The human ones are interesting. You got 4 humanoid ones. Like this one is, I don't even know what it's in reference to. It sort of seems like it's like, what's a Hisnak or Perix Armada? Like, I'm not catching the reference. It seems to be very cryptic in terms of, like, Keb the Fierce, Holt the Magnificent. I don't know if they're trying to be, fantastical. This one, again, I don't recognize the names. This one is getting very, very different. So, what's weird about it is you get, like, all these weird, leader names. Beshna Ladir. I don't know if that's, which language this is coming from. But then you got expeditionary fleets, so this seems like this would be an English thing. But anyways, and then we get down to here, and you got Wanup Kunu, Wanran Farah, again. So the humans have some really weird names. The UNE, though, is starting to get more. So, for example, you got Australia, Canada, Colorado. So this is getting more normal. And I think this is the one I'm doing, because I distinctly remember we had a Fahrenheit. And you can see our leader names, Charlotte Gilbert, Rudzani, Boris Salazar, Carlos Gonzalez. So this seems to be, and then San Cristobal, Olympia, New Troy. So, and of course your fleet names are just 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Then you have CM, which gets into Manifest Destiny, Doomsday, Strike Force. Your names are a little weird. But, and then SPQR, which of course is Roman. So there's a lot of Latin names involved. So I don't know. It was a little bit disappointing. I would have liked one that was just, like British fleets. I mean, because space fleets are naval, and Navy fleets, let's go after the best navies that have existed. So the British has a very distinguished navy. The Japanese have a very distinguished navy, and even the Americans do. To me, the humanoid names should have reflected that a little bit better. You could even change the prefix. So ISS, if you want to go, USS or whatever. You can even say, FIK, whatever. It's pretty awesome how they gave you so much. You could even say Mister. So lots of customization. I've spent way too much time on that. Next is the traits. They give you 2 trait points, and you're allowed to have 5 total trait picks. So what that means is some of these are negative. So if I select this one, it counts as one of my 5 trait picks, but it gives me 2 more points. So now I have 4 points to spend. So that's how so you're limited there. And if you remember, this is the screen where when we got genetic modification, this is how you do your modifications. So as you may recall, I always pick the intelligent one, and then I also pick the natural physicists. And I didn't pick that one. Instead, I picked, I think it was sedentary. So this was my starting race. I chose those. And then if we keep going, this is your choice of homeworld. So I picked continental, which is the middle one here. You can see there's Arctic, Alpine, and Tundra on the frozen side, Ocean, Continental, Tropical on the wet, and then Desert, Arid, and Savanna on the dry. So I went with the default, which is in the middle. You could pick any of these, and like I said, the game does, at least with the current settings I have, I will have at least 2 guaranteed planets within a couple spots from where I start, so I can at least colonize something. I've chosen, because I tried to get thematic, like when I made the Sacra, the lizard race, which I called Arizona, I went with the arid world, or maybe even the desert world, I don't remember which one, but I figured, it's lizards, they like the drier climates, and I ended up getting a crap ton of stuff to colonize. Like, it worked really well. The ocean worlds are considered to be more rare, but I ended up actually playing a game where I found a lot of those. So, I mean, it doesn't matter which one you pick. It's a lot of RNG. You can choose what kind of starting system, and they do have the Deneb system, the Sol system, and the Ocean Paradise system. Also is Void Dwellers, Shattered Ring, and Void Dwellers Soul. So they got some specific ones, and we can talk about those in a little bit. Some of those are dependent on your origin, which we haven't gotten to yet. So anyways, you pick which one you want, and then you can pick your type of city, and this is really just, this is cosmetic. There's nothing more to it. But when you load your planets and are playing the game, this is in the background, so it does, this cosmetic does play through. Now, this is, there's really 3 screens where you're going to spend most of your time customizing your race. The first one was these traits, which we just covered. The second one is your origin, which is here. And then the third one, which we haven't discussed yet, is your ethics and your civics. That's really the 3 primary areas where you're going to make some strategic choices. So the origin one, and you can see there's a lot of them. The game that you've been watching me play, we did Here Be Dragons. So this is where we started with a dragon outside. I hope you've enjoyed that. I actually enjoy this origin a lot. I find the dragon to be, it gives me like nice bonuses while I'm playing, and then right when I need him, which is usually when the L gates open, I'm getting him into my service, and I'm making little youngling dragons, to fight with me, and so he's helping my fleets to stay strong and overcome whatever I'm dealing with. So the dragon one, to me, both early and late game, it's really nice. But let's go. I'll try to go through these as quickly as I can. This one is simply you start the game with 4 extra population and 2 more districts. So your home world is going to be a little more powerful than anybody else's. And if it's your first game, I actually recommend this because it's simple. Is it a great start? No. It's a good start. We'll put it that. The Mechanist is you start the game with 8 pops that are robots. And you have the technology and infrastructure to build more. So if you want to have a robotic, if you're going to play a robotic game, this is actually a real good start for you. So what I mean, why would you want to do a robotic game? Well, you can manufacture robots, so you don't have to wait for your population to grow. You can just make them. And then the robots have different traits than you. So you can make robots that are good at mining, robots that are, just like the genetic evolution that we did, you can have robots that have different roles. And so those robots can really maximize, your resources, your farming, etc. So the robot game is, it's a very interesting one, and maybe if I have time I can try to show that. Okay, syncretic evolution is we're going to start the game with 12 pops of another subservient species. So we're going to basically have slaves. And I've never played this, to be quite honest. Personally, I just don't like the idea of the slaves concept. But I was told that it's okay. I don't think anybody, writes home about this one. I think from a narrative perspective, it's an awesome thing. Because, from a narrative perspective, you're basically this evil empire. Like, if you want to play as this evil empire that has, a subservient species that you can whip around, and I'm sure there's going to be events and narrative events that you're going to have to deal with. Revolts, things like that. This one is actually a decent one, but it has a big drawback. You can start on a Gaia world, so you start on a perfect planet. You'll have several rare planetary features. They're a little bit random, but like maybe one of the planetary features could be you're going to get a bonus to your farms, or whatever. So they can be good. The issue is your habitability preference is Gaia world, so that means all those 9 planets that you saw on the previous screen. None of them are your type of planet. So you're going to have a harder time colonizing anything else. So this is basically going to be it for the early game. Once you learn terraforming, actually terraforming doesn't even work either, because you can't terraform into a Gaia planet until later in the game. So you're going to have to maybe if you choose this, when you go back to your traits, one of your traits is going to need to be where is it? Adaptive. So your habitability is 10%, or extremely adaptive, which is 20%. You're going to need this to be your trait. The reason is, so if you get a 20% habitability bonus, then that means okay, you found a continental planet, you're only going to have 60% habitability for that because your primary planet is Gaia. Well, now you're going to get an extra 20% bonus. So it means you can colonize those other planets and it's not going to hurt you as much. So anyways, it's a nice one because you start with a perfect world, but not perfect. And I mean, in terms of a start, this is an interesting one, but it's not a perfect one. This is an interesting one, especially from narrative perspective. Post-apocalyptic, you start in a tomb world, and you have the survivor trait, which lets you get a plus 70%. So basically, you thrive on a tomb world. Most other races don't, but you get a 70% survivability on a tomb world, and your leaders just automatically live 10 years longer because you're like a cockroach. This one is you start with a relic world, which, if you've played Master of Orion, this is like the Cylon artifact world. Basically, a relic world is going to give you an automatic bonus to your research. This is one I've played a lot, and you see it in my game. We actually found a shattered ring, and we started colonizing a shattered ring. So yeah, you start with a shattered ring. Okay, what's the draw? Like, as you could see, I was actually generating a crap ton of resources and research in the shattered ring. So why would you not want a shattered ring? Here's the thing. The shattered ring means that you're not going to be able to colonize other planets. Like the other planets aren't going to be very hospitable to you. So you're going to basically be relying on this ring for almost all of your population. You're going to go tall versus wide, usually. The other thing is to complete these sections of the shattered ring, it costs 10,000 alloys, if you recall. So it's extremely expensive to expand your areas. So you're only going to start with like 1/4 available, and then you have to repair the other 3/4 to get the other expansions going. As much as I'm poo-pooing it with telling you what the drawbacks are, I still think it's a powerful way to play. I think there's so many powerful options with that, and it's proven by the fact that I have the Mandate of Round thingy in my game. The Void Dwellers. Now, this is an interesting one. They are people who live in habitats in space. So you start with 3 habitats, which actually I discovered the technology, but we never actually built one. They're like ring worlds, except they're smaller, and members of your species thrive on them and have 15% more, and produce 15% more while on one. But the problem is they get severe penalties on all normal planets, and then of course if you make a hydroponic farm, you get +1 job. So basically, these are people who enjoy living in these types of in basically a starbase, if you will, space station. The Scion. You start off the game as a vassal of one of those fallen empires, one of those Roman fallen empires, so you're a vassal to them. And so part of this is about breaking free from the yoke, etc., etc., but they also protect you. So, nobody's going to go declare war on you because the fallen empire will protect you. So it's an interesting, especially from a narrative perspective. This one, you start with a gateway. And what that gateway does and where it goes, there's a lot of different paths. So you could play this multiple times and get a different outcome. The Tree of Life. You have to have a hive mind, which we haven't talked about yet. And basically, your hive gains many bonuses from living on a planet with the Tree of Life present. Colony ships are more expensive, but will provide new planets with their own sapling. So basically, you basically have, it's almost like a queen bee concept, but your tree is necessary for your species to survive. I definitely played this one a few times. Shoulders of Giant. You start with an archaeological site right on your home world, and basically this is where your race of people are. There was a previous race that was there, and they left gifts for you. So they buried them in these like vaults and chambers, and when you became spacefaring, you then start to discover them, and they have clues for you, and basically they're helping you out. And so the story behind it is something, it's interesting. There's a lot of cool narrative. I know one of the ones that I played, I'm actually, this race that left all these gifts was actually our race. So we left those gifts to ourselves. There was some ancient threat that was killing anybody who had intellect. And so what they did was they removed their intellect intentionally and basically put them back into the Stone Age, so that way the ancient race wouldn't wipe them out. They basically made themselves become primitive. And so they left all these gifts, and those gifts were actually to themselves. And so they were hoping that their ancestors would eventually evolve and grow and become spacefaring again. And when they did, they would get all these gifts. It's actually a really cool story. Plus, the archaeological site gives you all kinds of artifacts, and those artifacts can give you a nice boost. You can sell them. You can do things with them. They can give you an advantage in the early game. This one is only for lithoids. So remember we were talking about different, races. It's not just cosmetic. Basically, there's a massive crater deposit in the home world, and you get additional districts. Lithoids also don't eat food. They only eat minerals. So food generation is almost pointless for them. You could still generate food and just sell it on the market for money. And then they have these colony ships that are meteorites. So they actually, they will create a calamitous birth on... So if you have like a world like this, you can send a meteorite to it, and it'll crash into the world, basically causing like an extinction level event. And then it'll create a massive crater in that world, and you'll have extra districts and mining, etc. in the new world. So it actually reduces the habitability of that new world, but because you're lithoid, you get a bonus to your habitability, which overcomes it. So, anyways, it's an interesting way to play. If you're playing as the lithoids, it's a nice little start. This one's really good. If you're a robot, you have to have Machine Intelligence Authority, and basically you start with a machine world as your home world, and the machine world is, it's basically it's like a Gaia planet for robots. This one, you start as a leader of a galactic federation, so you start the game in a federation with 2 other members. They will occupy those guaranteed habitable worlds. So remember how I said there's 2 guaranteed worlds near you? Those 2 will be occupied by 2 other species. But those species will be in a federation with you, and so you'll, you already have allies. And but the thing is those 2 worlds aren't yours to colonize. So there's pros and cons there. But you'll already have a federation, and so you could start earning your unity, your experience points, so your federation can become pretty powerful. And you can start from the beginning of the game. Here you start as a leader of a hegemony federation with 2 additional members. The members will occupy your homeworlds. I think the difference between this one, like this one, you are 3 equals. This one, they're like vassals to you. So you're going to be in a dominant role. Doomsday. Now in this one, your homeworld will explode within 35 to 45 years. And there's no guarantee that habitable planets will be near you. So remember we just talked about how 2 always spawn near you? That's not the case in the Doomsday one. So you need to explore rapidly. Exploring is your only priority, and you need to find somewhere to colonize, and you have to get your people there before your homeworld blows up. And it says it's challenging, and I would agree. There is no advantage to playing this way. There's none. The reason you do this is for either the challenge or the narrative, right? You definitely put yourself at a big disadvantage against the rest of the galaxy. This is an interesting one. There's an advanced empire of your species that's somewhere else in the galaxy, but we're a lost colony. So eventually you will find your own people somewhere else, and they're going to be a more advanced version of you. This is an expansion, the Necrophage. I've actually never played these guys. What you do is, they're vampires. You can convert populations of other species to yourself. Only Necrophage pops may be leaders. You start with a number of pops of a secondary species. and you're basically vampire race. Yep, you're a parasite. You feed on other sapient life forms for growth. So you have to conquer other people and use their bodies to grow. Clone army. You start with 2 ancient clone vat buildings, which produces clone soldier pops. It's great, except you're gonna have to do a lot of invading. Ancient clone vats have an empire limit of 5. Clone army admirals will grant an additional fire rate. So you're basically going to be militaristic if you do this. This, of course, is the one we've been playing. And then this is the one that I think that most people think is the meta, or the best of them all. And it's the latest expansion. Basically, you're going to start out as an ocean world, and it's going to be rich in food deposits, and you get a bonus to your happiness, your population growth speed, and your output. You get bonuses to all 3. And that's, I think, why people think this is the best. And then also, your guaranteed habitable planets are going to be frozen worlds. Okay, so now that you're aware of a lot of that, going back to the traits, some of the traits are gray. So this one's gray just because I chose physics. So you got phototrophic. So 50% of your food upkeep is now energy. So you can see here, you got to be plantoid or fungoid. So remember we were talking about how the different species type can mean something. So if you're plantoid or fungoid, you could choose this phototrophic. So basically, instead of eating food, you're only going to eat half the food your population would normally eat, but the other half is going to be energy credits. So I'm not saying that that's necessarily a good thing, but it definitely changes the way you play a lot. Your strategies are going to have to be different, and generating energy is just as important as generating food. But you maybe don't have to have as many planets like I did dedicated to making food. Radiotrophic. 50% of your food upkeep is replaced with energy, just like the other one. And you can see they're both plantoid fungoid. But if you're on a tomb world, you don't have any energy upkeep at all, but you still only eat half the food. And your growth speed is better on a tomb world, and your tomb world habitability is plus 10%. So if you choose this one, you're going to want to pick an origin where you start on a tomb world. Does that make sense? So, alright. Budding. Also, plantoid and fungoid. So there's a lot of these here. And you can see this one, each pop, working as a slave or better, gets 0.02 organic pop assembly. So if you're a slave or better, you actually get you generate more population. So this might go well with an origin where you start off as a vassal to the fallen empire, for example. And there's one in here. Oh, here it is. Aquatic. So this trait is required if you choose the ocean world one. So you can see here the ocean habitability is 20%. Housing usage on ocean foods is minus 10%. So you can squeeze more people, and they don't take up as much housing. Food, energy, and mineral output is another plus 10%, and that's in addition to the bonuses you get for having the aquatic, that origin. So the origin gives you bonuses, and then this aquatic gives you even more bonuses. But you do use a lot more housing on non-wet worlds, and your habitability on non-wet worlds is worse. So you're going to have to rely on terraforming to make everything ocean worlds. But your ocean worlds are going to be as good as a Gaia world or better. So you're going to have huge bonuses on your ocean worlds. And then there's this hydrocentric ascension perk, which amplifies your effects, and it is true. And then I had this ability where you can actually create, if you have a star base in the same star system as your ocean world, that star base has this little ice machine. I can't remember what it's called, but it's some ice analyzer. And then on your home world, there's a planetary decision where you can ice the polar caps. And it's not just your home world, just any world that you have a star base. So if you ice the system that you're population is in, and it doesn't even hurt your population. It's just a decision you have to do. It costs you credits and I think some influence. And then you build the star base above it and also do it. Then you get this big, huge bonus because the star base starts generating and doing things for you too. The aquatic is a really good way to go. Alright, so from a trait perspective, there are some unique items based on your race, but then the last one is your governance and ethics. And this is where it gets really crazy. So you got anglers, which is another thing that's only on ocean worlds. But your agricultural districts are uncapped, meaning you can have infinite agricultural districts. If it's a wet world, your farmers become anglers instead. And what they do is anglers produce 8 food and 2 trade. So you're getting money and food from your farmers. And then the pearl divers produce 3 consumer goods and 2 trade. And that's all just from farms. So your farmers are going to, the farmers make food and trade. And then the pearl divers, it's just a new type of job that's available. So by choosing anglers and the aquatic trait, you now have even more bonuses. So this is like why I think a lot of people view it to be very powerful. There's a whole bunch of civics you can choose from. Now, one of the ones I did was Parliament, which is probably gray right now. So I did this one because I was taking advantage of the faction influence gain of 40%. Now, the faction influence gain of 40% happens because here I'm choosing what type of ethics my people or government are going to be. So I chose egalitarian, which is democratic. And the egalitarian here you can see has a faction influence of 50%. And so you have to choose democracy as your type of government. And then once you do that, then the parliamentary system was a natural choice. So this is taking advantage of this. So there's a synergy. If I would have chosen to be full authoritarian, this would be a stupid choice. And in fact, it's not even an eligible one because you can't be democratic or oligarchic if you choose that. So if you choose either of these, democratic's not even an option. So you can see how there's like these conflicting things. Now, one thing you can do is you could choose to be a gestalt consciousness. Now, this is only available if you're a robot or a hive mind type thing. And you can see there we go. Now I can choose it. So when you do that, you're either a machine intelligence, and then if you choose machine intelligence, you get a whole new set of civics that are very different. If you choose to be a hive mind, again, a whole new set. And like one of them is devouring swarm. So you have a hunger. And basically, you're just trying to wipe out the galaxy with this. But you could also be a friendly hive mind. I mean, there's like a lot of things to choose from. And you got this idyllic bloom, but you have to be on a Gaia seeder on a world. So you want to start on a Gaia world to be able to do this idyllic bloom. And then this is what you do if you want to start the game as a robot. And, you can get different bonuses as a robot race and even have better army damage, etc. So what are your choices? Well, you got xenophobe, which reduces the influence cost of your star bases. Because if you remember, influence was always my limiting factor on why I couldn't expand faster. And it also gives you 20% population growth speed. This is very popular. Now, the reduced starbase influence cost alone is very important. But basically, you're playing as a isolationist when you do this, because you cannot be real friendly to other people. Your ethics are going to prevent you from having open arms. You can still be nice to them, but you're going to automatically have closed borders when you meet them, stuff like that. So basically, I played a lot like a xenophobe in terms of I only wanted my own species to colonize planets. So technically, I played a lot like this. So you could see that my playstyle would actually fit in as a xenophobe in this way. So you get an extra 20% growth speed, and your influence cost for your star bases is a lot lower. So you can expand, 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 and then of course grow, grow, grow. That's the idea. So basically, you're relying on yourself to win, which is what I did. But I did it as a egalitarian instead, and I was able to take advantage of the faction bonuses to expand. And trust me, even with this 40% discount, you're still going to be stuck with you don't have enough influence. Because in this case, you're going to get a 40% discount, but you're not going to get as much bonus influence like I did, because I got a bunch of bonus influence doing the egalitarian. So they sort of play the same in terms of as much as you might think, okay, I'm getting a 40% discount, this is a big advantage over this, I'm actually getting a 90% faction boost of 90%. So they sort of compensate, and you're just here. I'm getting more faction points. I'm getting more influence points, and here I just have to spend less. But they both sort of become a wash. They work out the same. Okay, like I said, on the opposite side, you have authoritarian, which this just straight up gives you 1 influence point. So you don't have to worry about your factions at all. You just get an extra influence point. And then your worker pop resource output is plus 10%, which means your minerals and your energy, you get a 10% bonus the whole game. So authoritarian is pretty good. And then also, if you choose imperial, you get an extra edict. Or if you do dictatorial, your empire sprawl penalty is lower. And that's not to mention that you have, like, you could become a slaver guild. Like, there's things here that will match your type of government and ethics. There's a lot here to study. Okay, so xenophobe, xenophile, you get 2 extra convoys and 20% bonus to your trade, so you're going to make a lot of money. The xenophile is a really good option to take with corporation. And again, if you take a corporation, they all become different again. So these traits, we've already discussed that the traits are different if you're a machine, they're different if you're a hive, they're different if you're any of these 4, and they're different again if you're a corporate. So there's 5 different sets of traits that you have to study just to make your race. You can become a pacifist. Your empire sprawl from population is greatly reduced by 1/3, so it's okay to grow. And your stability is plus 10, which means your people very rarely get unhappy, but you're not allowed to declare wars. Militarist is the claims. So you have to spend influence points to claim other star systems, and then whenever you win the war, you can then, if you have a claim on them, you could take those systems. So it's just cheaper to do that, so it makes warmongering easier, and of course your ship fire rate goes up. Spiritualist, you get a 20% bonus to your unity, and your edict cost is cheaper. And one thing it doesn't mention is you can see, well actually it mentions it there, it says you can build temple buildings. So temple buildings will help you to get more unity and amenities. So it's like a really nice building that will help you to keep your people happy, but at the same time it gives you a lot of unity, so you can go through those tradition trees a lot quicker. And then down here is the materialist, which is my son's favorite, and he argues this is the meta for the game. You get a 20% discount to your robot upkeep, and you also just straight up get a 10% research speed bonus. So remember, I was paying, what, 4,000, 5,000 credits for that one curator race to give me a 10% bonus, and I had to pay it like every, 5 or 6 years? Well, right here, look, you're getting a 10% bonus from the start of the game. And that's it. So we could go through all these. I really, don't want to bore you too much. Which ones do I like? If I'm not playing the democracy one, well, first of all, if you're playing Ocean, this is a no-brainer. I sort of like this one, but I later decided no. This is an interesting one because you produce your alloys from food, but I later decided this is not good because food has to be produced. There's no other way to get food, whereas minerals are something I can build a megastructure to produce minerals. So anyways, I just felt like this was very restrictive. Let's see. This one is always one that I think about, getting more administrative capacity, but I later decided it's a waste. There's just other things. This one here, environmentalist, your consumer goods upkeep, so your population uses 20% less consumer goods. That can be really good. The reason being is you don't have, like, we had a huge consumer good deficit right now in our game, and this would actually help with that. The other thing is, if you have a surplus of consumer goods, you can sell them for money. So it's good. This is the one that you saw me choose. I like the extra building slot, and I also like that the buildings and districts just cost 15% less. So you have to spend minerals for buildings and districts, and I can produce them cheaper. And that lets me keep my minerals for other purposes. This is one that you saw me take when I got an extra bonus. Artisans get replaced, and instead of just producing consumer goods, they also produce trade and engineering research. I just think that's super powerful. Merchant guilds are interesting. You get these merchant jobs that can create unity. I actually really like this one. Miners just straight up get +1. So every miner out there just generates 1 extra mineral. That becomes very cumulative, when you start getting a lot of them. Here you can change to a decadent lifestyle, where pops have increased happiness and consumer goods upkeep, and then there's entertainers and servants and blah blah blah. And then of course the reanimators. If you choose to be the vampire race, you actually can have necromancers, but they create naval capacity and undead defense and things like that. A shadow council. Your election influence cost is -75%, and meaning that you don't have to pay as much to manipulate the elections on who's going to win. You can see there's a lot of stuff. There's death cults. You can be a fanatic purifier, so you have to be fanatic xenophobe. You have to be. And you also have to be militarist or spiritualist, and basically you get like 33% fire rate, 33% army damage. Your ship build cost is cheaper. Your naval capacity is 33. So you're a warmonger. And you have the purification casus belli, which allows you to declare war on anybody because you're trying to purge the galaxy of anybody else. There's imperial cult. Lets you get 2 edicts. Inward perfection. This is for the isolationists, right? You can't have rivals. You can't have all these things. But you get a huge bonus to your growth speed, your unity. You just have less envoys, and your code breaking is not as good. Pompous purists. So here you can only engage in diplomacy with other empires if they are the proposer, but your trust growth is really good. And so you could be a slaver guild. It goes on and on. I mean, this one actually goes well with the materialist. You actually have science directors that are a part of your culture, and then you could just be a warrior culture. So, like I said, I probably spent way too much time on this already, but so many choices, and that's just with these 4. And like I said, if you go here and then pick this, you got a whole new set. So if you're craving that game where you can really customize and try different things, this game has it. Now, it also has a whole bunch of voices.
These alien savages must be taught to kneel when in the presence of their betters.
We are one.
Don't let the baseless accusations of wrongdoing fool you.
As the learned say, what's yours is mine, and what's mine is also mine.
First time user setup initialized. Let me show you around. Maybe play you a sound. The Empire looks pretty groovy. Or if you want something visual that's not too abysmal, we could take in an old primitive society-themed hollow.
So this is the robot voice. You may
Did you know that my entire
recognize
power
that.
core has an effective blast yield of over 5 megatons of TNT in the event of a catastrophic overload?
So every time it says like colony, created or research complete, it's
Priority
this
alert.
voice.
This pre-recorded message is triggered in the event that your VIA unit has
Alert. Possible organic life form detected. Seek,
So
isolate, destroy.
We will have equality, liberty, and justice for all.
actually
So
that
I've been told. I'm
actually-
just a robot.
I think that's the voice that we've been doing in our game. Is that one egalitarian?
Democracy sure is an endless struggle.
The only way to make peace with others is to make peace with yourself.
Our course is charted. Honest work means hard labor.
Fields, rocks, mountainsides, lend me your ears.
So that's Optimus Prime. If you want him in your game.
Attention on deck!
So this is all cosmetic, of course, but there's still a ton of customization. When you do your empire name, you can type whatever you want. I have to pick a government type, so boom, boom. And then I can come here and... Oh. So it's based on your government type. This here, I think. So yeah, because I chose to be an oligarchy, it's doing committee or league. If you were an empire, it would be more Third Reichish. And then this is also cool. I mean, there's 100 different types of symbols that you can make on your emblem, and then you can even change how this looks and your colors. Lots of customization. And then your ships. These are mammalian ships, which I don't know why it's not letting me hold and drag. There we go. It's really weird. I had this issue when I was trying to move the windows around too. But anyways, that's a fungoid ship. And then what I find it funny is your aquatic ships. It's like, okay, how are they moving through space? And they got basically oceans inside the ship. So it's all water. And there's some Imperial ships, which are very Star Wars-ish. You got your Necroid ships. And again, it's just not responding to my right mouse button as much as I would like. And so forth. So there's your Molluscoid, your avian ships, reptilian, and humanoid. And then there's your plant ships. You can change the different kinds. Like that's a destroyer, a cruiser, battleship, Titan, construction ship, colony ship. I think that's an interesting one. It's got a nice agriculture look. The aquatic one, yep, all water. And then that's a citadel, which is like your best star base. Pretty cool. And this is purely cosmetic, but I still think it's cool. And then of course your ruler. This is where you can finally decide if they're male or... Oh, it's male because of a choice I made a lot earlier. And then of course you can put in, and you can change the way they look, their hairstyle, what kind of clothes they have, etc. Anyways, that's it. Next video we will continue playing. Thanks for watching. As always, stay awesome.